Hey, you know who it is. Zeus Cruz of Olympian Multimedia giving you another segment of Get Things Done. In this particular segment, we're going to concentrate a little bit more from the perspective of music production, the hardware. In the past tutorial, we did talk a little bit about the software side as far as laying out your tracks, discussing inputs like plugins, and a little bit of touch of when it comes to mixing and mastering. Today, we're going to just discuss a little bit more about the hardware and stuff that you can utilize in your music production to give you a more, you know, a more in-depth and flow to your music production. And also, too, we're going to touch base just a little bit on, do you have to actually rely on the hardware? Could you just simply use your own keyboard and the software itself to make music? So let's start. Let's check this out over here. As you notice here, this is pretty much traditional in most producer studios. When it comes to music, it's just having your standard keyboard. Keyboards have come a long way. Now they're more structured to be workstation keyboards, which means, in simple layman terms, you can complete your whole music production from making your drum patterns to making the melody to mixing it. They're built in with the sequencers. You can make your own tones, rhythms, synths on here. Everything that could be included in your music production can be made on these workstation keyboards. In this particular one, I have a newer model from Casio. It's the WK-7600. And it's pretty self-standard. The console up here is pretty much self-explanatory. It has a pattern sequencer. It has a tone editor, as I mentioned before. It has the sequencer. But these are good to have in your studio if you just want to make a simple template for yourself that you can work off of. Right here, I have as my tone, I have a string pattern. And for my rhythm, or you could consider that as your bass line, a simple pop mixed with a harder synth to it. Something simple. The tempo is at 100 BPMs. Whatever your rhythm is, or the tempo that you want it, obviously you can, fluctuate it up and down. And then simply put, by just putting a few keys, you see, that's just something simple. Obviously, that's not a fully orchestrated beat. But again, you can use that as a template and kind of build off of there and start adding different things on there. That's why I recommend always having just your traditional keyboard. It do have all the setups in the back that you can plug it up to your computer. If you don't want to rely on your SD card, but you can store it on there, there's a slot for that as well. But it's always good to just have something that can provide that template for you. As you see here, you have a smaller modified Midi keyboard. It's specifically called a recorder. You notice it has 8 pads on there along with the keys. And these are great for, like, if you're on the go type of producer and you need something a little bit more compact. These are great to have. They do utilize or have available on stock smaller ones, as you see here. This is probably a very popular brand. It's the Akai MPC Midi. Very popular. You utilize in pretty much any DAW, which is, if you remember from the past video, a DAW is a digital audio workstation, or simply put, the music software of your preference. Again, you have the pads, you have your tuners. You can set all the parameters up as you see fit, to produce your track. Definitely recommend these type if, like I said, you're on the go, you're doing a lot of like on stage performances and whatnot. Definitely a component that you're going to have as well are audio interfaces. This one is mine, personal choice that I utilize a lot. It's from Native Instrument, and it's the Complete Audio 2. They actually have two other versions that's a little bit bigger that has more inputs on it. But these are great as you have your lines in and out to allow, obviously, to plug up mics. The bigger versions have amps, preamps on there that you can put like guitars or any other live instruments to it. Obviously, you have your controller up here to control the volume. And you definitely need these, especially if you're using compressed mics, if you're going to be doing a lot of vocal recording. Then you have other types of audio interfaces that allow you to input different types of sound effects. If you don't really want to rely so much on the software and then input it manually, you could do it while you're recording. And you have special ones as these that allows you, as you're doing your vocal sample or you're recording vocals, you can input the sound effect of your choosing. Then let's check it out over here. At our workstation over here, as you notice, again, we have a more bigger, more structured MIDI keyboard. This particular case, this is a Novation Launchkey 49. It's a pretty popular one. They have a version that's a little bit bigger than this one. It's the 61, the Launchkey Key 61. But it's pretty much formatted the same way. The number only signifies how many keys are on the chord or on the keyboard. But it's pretty much structured the same. You have your mix pads up here. You have your tuners to set up the parameters as far as your volumes and whatnot. You have a simple console setup over here that allows you to control the software that you're using so that you don't have to be so stringent on using your mouse. And then obviously you have your pitch and your modulation to change the frequency of the sound that you're inputting. These are great. One thing I do recommend or let people know, you don't necessarily need to know how to play a keyboard to utilize these. A lot of this is based off of just finding a pattern that you're comfortable with. And then again, you can build off of that. Similar to just using a traditional keyboard, you use this as a template and then layer it out through your tracks. You start adding more on there to complete your music production. In this particular case, we could look at something real quick from Arcade. I definitely discussed this in past tutorials. This is my go-to for like plugins, different types of synths and melodies and stuff to look forward, to utilize and work with. Obviously, when you're using this, again, as a quick reminder, you have to go to your settings and set it up as far as your audio output, where the music is going to be coming out of. And then you have to set your MIDI inputs as well, what particularly that you're using. This particular case for here is the Akai MPC Midi. So you click on that, everything is good to go. And then from there, and again, that's just something simple that I played. Obviously, it doesn't take rocket science to know that's not a complete beat, but that could be your starting point to creating your melody to your beat. Depending on what style you are a producer, some producers like to start with their drum patterns first. They feel like that's more the foundation and they kind of build off of that. Some producers like to just come with the melody. It's easier for them to kind of just layer their drum pattern up to their melody once they have everything in place. But simply put, Arcade is just a quick example and a great tool to utilize, as you can change your pitch. You come here, obviously you have all the main chords that you would see on the keyboards. You have the regular melody along with the sharp keys, and then whatever you decide to pick, it automatically locks it for you. These are small parameters that you can use on here to kind of spice it up a little bit once you're playing out your melody. And then you could come up here and utilize this tool called Tweak, where you can get a lot more in depth as far as like the frequencies and how fast you want it. It has a mixer on there. You can add filters, so forth and so on, just to give it a little bit more texture to your beat. And it's a great tool to have. And this is a plugin, and it pretty much works on any DAW. And the only way to utilize this though is you have to use a MIDI keyboard. You can plug up some other things as well that can work to your advantage, depending on, again, what type of producer you are. And I keep mentioning that, and it's important to, because at the end of the day, you want to be comfortable in your setting so that you can put out the best product, the best music possible. So as you see here, this is also from Novation. And I use this from time to time. This is basically a sequencer. And then if you notice on here, it's built into grids. So it's basically 4 grids on here. And then you can layer each grid out specifically for a certain thing. So if you just want to play out drum patterns, this grid can be specific for that. You can use this grid specifically to make your melody. You can use this grid to specifically make your own synths or different types of audio effects. You know what I mean? That you want to utilize on there as well. One thing too, let me get back into Arcade real quick. Because one thing I failed to mention as well, and this is a big thing for people, because sometimes it's not always about the melody. It's all about just inputting simple things on there. This is great too, and I recommend it more so using a MIDI keyboard if you're going to use vocal samples. Like in this particular case, again, on Arcade, this specific one is called Spread Your Wings.
Never coming, I see birds through the sky.
And I mean, that's just dope. It's just the clarity within it. That's why, again, I recommend Arcade. But I feel like MIDI keyboards do a better job of having you more in control if you're using vocal samples compared to using, in this particular case, a sequencer or something else, some other type of hardware or component. I just feel like you just have way more control, and then you could kind of balance it out within the track of your music production. Then the last thing here I want to show you is basically a mix pad. Akai just put this out a year ago. It's called the MPC STUDIO. It's freaking phenomenal the way you can utilize it. Let me go ahead and plug it up. Mostly everything that you see here, I'll have it in the description below. So it gives you an idea if you're looking into like start building your own studio. Neat thing about this one particularly, like I said, it came out a year ago. It has a touch strip on here to kind of control the levels of velocity as far as the sounds and the different types of loops and synths that you're inputting in your production. You can kind of make it like wavy, or you kind of like a drop out or drop into your production, which is cool. It makes it a lot more easier for you to like kind of mix up your production a little bit. You basically control the whole software from the hardware. And again, it's called MPC STUDIO. And now they just had an update, so it's called MPC 2 or MPC STUDIO 2. And this is basically the layout of it. This also can be utilized as a plugin too in another DAW as well, or you could just use it as is. But you basically control it through these pads, these 16 pads. Each pad, you can input multiple different types of sounds into each pad and then mix them up as you want. The reason why I say you got to find your identity as a producer is because you might feel more comfortable just using keys. You might even be proficient at playing the keyboard. So obviously you will be more comfortable. And again, the best product is going to come out. Some people like using sequencers, especially in the grid form. It's a lot more They feel like they can have a lot more control. It's a lot more structured for them. But some people are very good on pads, and they can outline a whole beat by just utilizing the pads in itself. So that's why it's important as a producer, you need to find out what you're comfortable with. As you've seen here, you have your more traditional keyboards that you can use. You can use your MIDI keyboards. If, again, you're good at playing keys or playing melodies off of there. If you want more structure, you should go ahead and get yourself a sequencer. If you're looking for a lot more flexibility, doing a lot of beats on the fly, just kind of really just relying more on loops and kind of just fixating the loops into a whole beat, then pads is the way to go. And this is like a pretty standard and easy. The overhead as far as trying to learn it is not that hard. It's a lot of click and drag. You clearly put this on here and it's just something simple. I'm just messing around a little bit. I know plenty of other people that are just like amazing when it comes to the pads. Obviously, it's all about coordination and patterning yourself. You got to remember the patterns in which you input the different types of sounds on the pads. But it's just a great tool. Akai puts out tremendous products between their software and their hardware. So I definitely recommend Akai. I definitely recommend Novation. They make really good products, and they're really easy to use and streamline it into your production. But last but not least, that I'm going to show as we click out of this, this program that I'm clicking on is Traktor Pro 3. Let's see if that comes up. As you see here, you don't need to be a rocket science to figure out what this is right here. And this is basically a DJ hardware. This can be utilized in a live setting if you're doing like a concert or you're doing some type of event and you're doing a live performance or whatever. Obviously, you can use it. Mainly this type of model, though. This model comes from Native Instrument. It's their Traktor series. This is the Control S2. They actually have bigger ones. Two other models that are a little bit bigger than this one that has more inputs and tuners and so forth on there. But this is mainly like a MIDI controller. You use it in this setting right here, and you're wondering, well, how you can make a beat. Usually in a DJ setting, you're kind of just mixing already songs that are created, and you're kind of making your own mix based off of there. But you can actually utilize this and make a beat. Each side inputs a different type of loop or different type of sound. You have your mix pads for each side. You have your cues for each side. You have your fader to go in and out between each side or each sound that you got inputted. Each side has their own tuners to set up your perimeters. You can set up loops. You can break it off into a certain segment, as you see here. This will be your timeline. You can actually set up segments where it can be looped. And if you just want to play on one side, you have your pinwheel or your jog wheel, in which you can set different types of effects and whatnot. Again, it's a controller because you can pretty much control the software from here. You have your brow buttons up here where you can like go and check out different things and input different types of loops or different type of sound packs that you want to put into your production. You can kind of flip-flop different things and so forth and so on. So this could be another route for you. You may not find yourself being great at doing pads or playing yourself on keys or using the sequencer. Maybe the whole grid structure gets confusing for you. You can utilize a DJ controller. And I definitely recommend Native Instruments. I think they make the best. Pioneer makes is another great brand as well that you can utilize as well. They have their own software called Recordbox. And I think recently they just had an update. So you can utilize that and make your own beats. But this is definitely another option. It's basically what I'm trying to elaborate through here. You don't have to feel like you have to be stuck at a certain thing and utilize one certain thing. There's a plethora of different things that you can utilize. You just have to find what you're most comfortable with. And then in turn, if you're really not a hardware person, then I recommend using this program called Serato Studio. And Serato's been known for their DJ equipment and DJ software, but now they made their own full-length DAW, essentially. And the great thing about this one is that you could take existing beats that you made or existing loops and you can actually remix it into something brand new. Or you can make your own beat. Or you can set up a certain template and just work off of that. You know, so we'll just go ahead and pick trap. And it's pretty much set where you want. And it's pretty much easy to use. You know what I mean? You have your intro. Then you go ahead. You can either copy what's in your intro or in the previous slot. Copy it into the next slot. Or you just make that into another track. Again, you have your own tuners on here, in which you can change the different frequencies or how much you want to input a beat at a certain length. They give you a little bit of a sample to let you know like what you're using or utilizing. Your whole library is over here. You're using different instruments, different effects, different audio samples, different drums. And it's really easy to use. You kind of just bring it up on here. You know, and you just kind of just play it out. And then you just keep inputting onto here what specifically that you want. They make it easier for you by using these options here, whereas like you just want to add a sample. You go ahead and add a sample. Go ahead and drop it. So they quickly take you to your audio samples. You just scroll down to what you want. And then there you go. And then from there, with this one, you can actually break down that particular sample into like what you specifically want. You could change the key shifts on there, change the tempo of it. You know what I mean? You can even add other effects to it. And then you kind of just work down the line until you start constructing your beat. And then you have your segments down here, where essentially are your tracks. And then you can compose your whole beat. The main thing also too, you can change your key. If you want to make it a standard chord or a sharp, again, here's the controls for the BPMs, so forth and so on. The point of this one is to show you is that you're composing the whole beat by just using your mouse. So maybe that's what you're more comfortable with. Maybe not being so hands-on with hardware. You just strictly just want to use the software and just start making different things with what the software or the DAW provides, and you're just using the mouse, you're just clicking and dragging, and you're kind of just composing everything together. It's similar to like a puzzle. You're putting the pieces together to make something. So Serato Studio, there's plenty of other different types that you can use that you can simply just using the mouse to compose it. In the next tutorial, I'm going to show you a couple other examples of that, where you can just kind of rely more on the software. but this is just a quick example to use. The Serato Studio. It's subscription based. It's only $10 a month. So definitely I recommend that. If you want to utilize Arcade that I showed earlier in the video, that's only $10 a month as well. I think it's a small fee or investment to pay to utilize the tools and, make something out of it. So I'm just giving you guys a little bit food for thought. Again, the most important advice I could give you is find your identity as a producer. Don't base yourself so much on what other people are doing. At the end of the day, it's your music. You need to be comfortable with it. And most importantly, you need to love doing it when you're producing. The love can be taken very quickly if you don't find your identity and you feel like you have to put it upon yourself to kind of utilize all these different things. Just find your own niche and run with it. So that's it. So again, Zeus Cruz of Olympian Multimedia giving you another segment of Get Things Done. And I guess this only thing left to say is get things done. Check you later.